The Effect Audio X Elysian Acoustics Lab Pilgrim Noir. This is a personal product that was bought with my own money, and all thoughts and opinions are my own. I wanted to be clear about how I got this unit just for clarity, in case there weren't any concerns. There have been a lot of drama and a lot of interesting things being said about this. There's a lot of things we kind of need to talk about first. First, the elephant out of the room. This is an expensive product, and it is almost double the price of its sister IEM, the Pilgrim regular, I guess we can call it. And a lot of the justification for that is the fact that it has a different cable. But it's not just a different cable, it has a different tuning. So while there's going to be a lot of comparisons made to that, I'm going to live in a different realm that, you look at something like the Truth Dear Whole Eye, that's what a $20 IEM. We're living in a world where people spend more than $20 on products. So we're trying to assess the value of product of an IEM that is expensive. So that can be a challenge. But let's get into the build quality like normal. Hey, we got a family picture. Okay, and the awful magic one. But if you look at this, we have the Elysian Annihilator on the left, the Noir on the second to the left. This is the Noir right here. You notice it has a nice golden nozzle. The cool thing about it is I think it kind of looks good that it's not completely black and has just a tiny bit of classy looking color. If you compare this to the regular Noir, these are basically the same. Personally, I like the colorway of the Noir. If someone had to ask me in a vacuum, hey, no price, no concern, which one of these would you enjoy? I would definitely go with the Pilgrim Noir. The fit of this IEM is a little bit strange, and I feel exactly the same way about it as the regular Pilgrim. Like, it doesn't have that nice little lip on the end. It doesn't really fit that good in my ear. I think some people might have different feelings on this IEM, but for me, the fit and comfort isn't super great. You look at it, it's a very nice, handsome sized shell, and it looks good. It's a little bit thicker. And it's not a bad IEM at all. Now, this is the Annihilator. This is my basically favorite IEM. This is, you can tell the shell is slightly smaller. In ear, the Annihilator fits and feels really snug, while the Noir does kind of feel, it's harder for me to fit it in ear, and I do need to use different ear tips. I typically find myself using Elysian ear tips, the same that I used on the Pilgrim. And I don't have any fit or comfort problems. I feel like I'm getting a good seal, and that's really all that matters, if the ear tips that are working for you. So, you can tell it doesn't have that little lip, so it doesn't fit very well. It's a little bit fatiguing where it is in my ear, but it does have a really class nozzle. I really like the golden texturing of this nozzle, and I think that is something to note. Now, first of all, I wanted to talk about my opinions on cables. Now, I don't really feel that cables make a huge difference. This is the Pilgrim original cable. You can tell, it's a nice looking cable. It's Pentacon. It looks good. It's extremely functional. It doesn't sit very well, but a lot of cables will kind of have a hard time being sat well. This is the Noir cable. You'll notice it has a different braid to it, but overall, it's just a nice cable. It has a nice little cable cinch. It looks good and feels good in hand. This is a premium cable. These cables do cost more. There's a neat feature with these cables, like you can take off the bottoms of these and you can swap out the termination to a different connection if you want. You can even take this cable and swap it to different connectors, and that adds a lot of value. I don't really think, there's a huge sonic quality to cables. I don't really find any difference, and I'm not that person to A/B cables to try to figure that out. I think if you want to believe in cables, believe in cables. I personally don't believe in cables. So as I don't believe in cables, this doesn't really add a huge value to me, but it is a nice product, and I do find it very nice. I wanted to show you a bunch of cases. This is the original Pilgrim case. I didn't really mind it. I thought it was just kind of okay, kind of weird looking. This is the Noir case. Now, it's basically the same as the Annihilator case. I like the shape of it a little better. I think it's easier to fit things in it. I mean, it is a magnet to dust and debris. That's not necessarily typically a terrible thing. I wanted to show you the Elysian case here also as well. This is about a $160 case. This is a really nice case, and this is kind of what I would recommend if you wanted to put like in a premium unit, is get something like this, something that's, you know, has a nice zipper, it looks good, it feels good in hand. But, you know, cases are very subjective, but I wanted to show you a few things. Now, the sound of the Noir is a funny thing. It does have a different tuning. We'll talk about that when we get into the graphs. But to give it a characterization is that it is neutral, it is laid back. I want to be clear that I like the Noir a great deal, but I find a great deal of value in it sonically, and I find it very, like it's an exceptional IEM, and I want to be hyper clear that this is an exceptional IEM that I fully enjoy, and I think some people are going to listen to and say, wow, this is the best IEM I've ever heard, and they just going to instantly want to buy it. So I don't think it is a bad IEM, but it is not necessarily the IEM that I am always hunting for. I want to put ourselves into a theory that, like, sometimes you want an IEM at different times of the day. For me, this is kind of a dark, relaxing set. Like last night, I got home from a really long trip where I was just tired. You know, I've been on the road all day. And when I got home, I was able to, you know, use the Noir, and the Noir just, it didn't excite me, it didn't frustrate me, it just kind of calmed me down. And that's one thing I like about a sonic sound signature kind of like this. I don't like messing with EQ. I can EQ with the best of them. I use Peace APO, I use my Codalix 5K, but I like having IEMs that are well tuned, that fit well, and that I can just utilize them for whatever mood that I want. And this has a really good fit, a really good thing for me in certain moods. And I want to talk a little bit more in depth about this sound because it's not a perfect IEM, but it's a very good IEM. Okay, the graph of the Pilgrim Noir. If we look at it, I think it has a nice bass response. It's pretty normal. It's kind of like the average normal bass response. It's not really high. And so we're going to kind of get into it. It does have a very, very slight channel mismatch in my unit. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's noticeable. It's very within tolerations. It's not extreme, but it is something to note. And we're going to get into a lot of different IEMs as we talk about this. So this is going to be a longer section maybe than normal. The first one I want to look at is the Pilgrim. Now, this is the original Pilgrim, and I'm going to be honest. I see value to both of these. I see value as sometimes I found the original Pilgrim to be a little bit too bright for my needs. Sometimes it was a little bit too sparkly for sparkly sakes. But I found that overall bass quality, this isn't just by graph, but by ear and by just, like feeling. The Pilgrim Noir is just a little bit more laid back. It's a little bit mellow, and that's something to note. And that's what I'm trying to say here is that it's not just the upper mids, it's not just the air, it's also the bass. Everything on this is more relaxed. It is a little bit more mid. All right, so I wanted to compare this to other Elysian IEMs. Like if you look at this versus, say, the Diva, and sometimes you can find a Diva sometimes for $1,100 to around $1,000. So I mean, if you're looking at buying a new Noir versus a used Diva, it's actually pretty comparable. There's a case to be had with the Diva, and one of my problems with it is that it has different levels of bass. Like if you look at the this red switch, you know, let's turn that off. You can tell there's a lot of different bass levels, right? And there's a lot of different levels where it's at. And I found this blue switch, like the higher bass quality, to be almost a little bit much. And so like the nice thing about the Noir is I think it hits that nice level of bass. Let's normalize this actually at 500. But like you'll notice that like, I mean, it has a nice level of bass, but not really exceptional. Like it's not really impactful. It's just, It's a little relaxed. It's a little bit nice. It's a little bit dark, as in uncolored, a little bit boring. And this is not necessarily a bad thing, but there is a slight, tiny characteristics to this IEM, and I wanted to point that out. Some people might like that, and if that's what you're looking for, if you thought the Diva was too much, I think the Noir provides a unique experience where none of the IEMs in the Elysian Acoustics Lab like repertoire are nullified by this IEM. It is extremely unique, and none of the IEMs that I've heard from them or I've reviewed on channel are like that. Let's look at the Annihilator. And Annihilator is my favorite. It just has a little bit better upper mids. It has a little bit better bass and sub bass. To me, that's just my baby. It's my ride or die. That's like my favorite no sell set. And if I quit the hobby today, it'd be the Annihilator that I take with me. I like the Pilgrim Noir. I like it a great deal, but it doesn't really excite me to listen to music. It's the kind of set that I want to listen to when I don't want anything to bother me. I don't want anything to mess with me or anything to poke me or touch me. That's kind of the set that the Noir is for me, not the amazing set. And so because it's that kind of a set, it's just so safe, and it's kind of interesting in that regards, that I don't really love the safeness of the Noir, and it's kind of a love and hate kind of a thing with it. I wanted to show a few other IEMs that I think this is close to. I think this is close to like the Velour. Like they have kind of similar bass levels, kind of similar relaxed upper mids. I personally like the Velour more, and I think it's the better IEM, but this does give you kind of a budget Velour for a lot cheaper. I mean, the Velour is a much more expensive IEM, and so that is something to note. The next thing to look at is, the 64 Audio U4S, and these, if you get the U4S used, and 64 Audio does have really good open box sales, that you can get these at about the same price. Notice you'll see a lot of very similar trends to these two IEMs. I think, they both have really nice metal shells. There's reasons to go with either one of these IEMs depending on what you want, but they both kind of have that flattish, neutral-ish sound signature, and I think you could go with either one of these. And they have a lot of similarities, actually. And I think this is kind of Elysian Audio's kind of attack to 64 Audio to a certain extent, because this does have such a similar sound signature. And I'm not saying they're the same IEM, but I think they fit the same kind of price, the same kind of niche in the market. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that with this 64 Audio or Velour, I think they're very similar in their build and a lot of certain qualities and characteristics, and they remind me a little bit of each other. And so if that's kind of what you're looking for, it might be a good way to go. The next thing I want to show you is the Audio Monarch Mark II. Now, that's kind of a harder IEM to get, and it does have really nice upper mids. I think I prefer myself of the upper mids of the Monarch Mark II just a little bit better. But it's one of those things. You're talking about different styles, different approaches, different shells, all different kinds of things. I think, the Monarch to me is a little bit dull and boring. I think the Pilgrim has the similar kind of effect to me. These two remind me a ton of each other, and there's certain qualities and characteristics that they trade blows with. Again, I don't think the Pilgrim Noir is a bad IEM, nor the Monarch Mark II, but they both have that almost like dead neutral pan. But I do think the upper mids are a little bit more energetic on the Audio Monarch Mark II, and that's something to note. And for people that are sensitive to that, they are gonna like the Monarch Mark II a lot better. Next thing to look at is the Softair's RSV. I just reviewed this on channel. One thing I do want to note is that the Noir does have a little bit better bass than the RSV. They do have a little bit similar qualities and characteristics. I think there's a lot to be had. I mean, these are both a writer, the RSV came in at 700. Elysian Acoustics Lab Noir is around 800. I think these two IEMs trade blows, and I think this is kind of the level of what the Pilgrim Noir is at. Like it is a good IEM, and it has a lot of good things about it, and it's a nice sounding product. And if someone's like, oh yeah, I have the Pilgrim Noir, I'd be like, well, yeah, that's a great IEM. And it is a great IEM. And I want to be really clear with my evaluation that I do feel that Noir is a great IEM. But, you know, I mean, if you see a soft ears RSV on the market and you're not really sensitive to bass and you want this better upper mids, it might be a better deal. And that's kind of what I'm trying to tell you guys. Next one, the EM10. I really like the bass of the EM10. It's a really fun set. I really fully enjoy it. It is full Harman. And so if that's a problem for you, maybe not go that way. But I really like the EM10. I think it might be the better value than the Noir, despite the Noir being a really good IEM. To me, I was really hoping that the Pilgrim Noir would have a little bit more of a Harman tuning, a little bit more bass, a little bit upper mids. And I was really hoping that it would have that similar tuning with better upper mids, better bass. And it doesn't really seem to have that. And it just seems to me to be a lot more neutral, a little bit more dull, and not really what I am looking for in IEM, but definitely not unenjoyable. The next thing to talk about is the Supernova. And you notice their bass levels are about the same. Their upper mids are completely different. I think that these are about the same price. I think the Supernova is going to come across as a lot more natural, has a lot better tonality. I think the air and detail and the sparkle, if that's what you're looking at, in the Noir is a little bit better. I do find myself sensitive to 5 or 6K. I think you're going to find the Supernova to be a slight more of a U shape, a little bit more energy in this region. And it's just a different approach to upper mids. And I think it's not perfect, but it's not really what I would be looking for in an IEM. All right, then now we're going to go down the chain a little bit to some different IEMs. You can look at, this is the Critical Dusk. This is the OG without DSP correction. I think, it's hard justifying when you have such a good IEM with certain values that the things that it does. The Dusk's also well packaged. I mean, the Noir's well packaged. I'm not a huge fan personally of the Dusk for a couple of reasons. Mainly just I think the default sound signature is about the same. And if you look at that, there's a lot of similarities with them. I think the Noir is debated to be a little bit better with less 5 to 6K area. I think, but I think the Dusk fits better. I think the Dusk might have a little bit more sparkly air and detail up top. There's a case to be had for either one of them, but I kind of think, if you're thinking about the Dusk versus the Noir, I maybe even try the Dusk first. It might work for you. I know a lot of people like that one. Personally, not so much. So let's talk about some other IEMs that I think might be good as well. The next one is the Da Vinci. And I mean, if you look at these, there's a lot of characteristics they have that are similar. Sonically, the Da Vinci is going to have a lot more air, a lot more sparkly upper mids, a lot more bass, and the quality of that bass isn't like the EM10 where it's just thumpy and nice. It's a little bit tacky, it's a little bit pillowy, and it's a little bit overbearing, but it's still a really, really solid IEM that's a lot cheaper than the Noir, and that's something to note. If you're looking for value, I still would go with the Da Vinci at this point, or maybe even the original Pilgrim, kind of depending on what you want. Another thing to look at is like the Sino. Like this reminds me a ton of the Sino, and just that it has that kind of middling bass, that middling upper mids. I didn't really like the Sino. I found it sibilant for what it was trying to do. I felt like it needed more something. I just felt like its driver quality and its tuning was not that pristine. But I mean, a lot of people like the Sino, and the Sino might be, if you're really going hyper budget, I mean, it's like $50 right now. You might be able to get a similar relaxed sound signature IEM for a lot cheaper from that. And another thing that I'm going to recommend, maybe even better, like I'm all for a relaxed peanut gain if it has that extra bass. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like one of my favorite IEMs I didn't plan to show you guys, but let's do that on the fly. Like if we add the Jupiter in here and we can get rid of the Explorer, you can tell that the Jupiter just has that increased bass. to kind of compensate for everything. And I think that's kind of the problem with the Noir. Now, don't get me wrong, the Jupiter does cost more, but I think it's just a better IEM. It has EST drivers, there's a lot of good quality things about the Jupiter that is contrasting to the Noir. But again, you look how much bass that Jupiter had, and it has that to kind of give punch and depth to the music. And I think that's something kind of fun, because it can add some problems if you just try to keep cranking your music up, and your music can kind of feel flat, lacking sparkle and lacking bass. Is not a tuning that really works for my ear canal. And so the Pilgrim Noir, again, it's just hyper relaxed, hyper chill, and not a bad set, but I think there's a lot of different options that you could go with that are cheaper that might give you a tuning that you might like better. So a few things I wanted to know just on sonic impressions, like this song Second Colon right here by Elysian. It's like one of my favorite songs, but when I compare this to the Pilgrim OG, and this is kind of what, one of my favorite songs, and this is really what did it for me, was that it wasn't that just that the Noir had that less shimmery treble, but it also had that less bass. It just came across so flat and so dead neutral that it was just too plain for me from a sonic quality. And I guess if that's what you're really going for, something so flat and almost dull. Another thing is, when I was listening to Angel from Mass Attack, it just lacked a very pillowy, it just had a really pillowy light bass. When I did a lot of A/B comparisons, the bass just felt just too delicate, too light. And when you can get it from another IEM from the same company for cheaper, what I would rather go with, that to me kind of sealed the deal on kind of how I felt about this IEM. That it is good, but lacks that special sauce of what I would really want. So I guess I wanted to say how I rank this IEM. I mean, I'm giving this kind of like an 8.4, which is a nice solid A. Where, I mean, at this price, you might want to consider something like the Mega 5 EST, maybe a used Soft Ears RSV, or maybe even like a U4S used if you can swing it. I mean, there's other IEMs that might be a better value to you, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, do I find value in this? Yes. But for what I want to recommend to people, for what my sound signature and my preferences lie, it's not exactly with this IEM. Again, it's not bad. It's just not something that I really would find myself reaching for and going for all the time, because I find its upper mids so relaxed, so middling, and it just doesn't have that level of excitement. Now, I get sometimes you might not want that excitement, but for me, when I want something like that, I probably would prefer, say, an L-shaped tuning, like the Jupiter, or like maybe the Awful Explorer, to give me something that I would really want, rather than something that's just a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more mellow and a little bit more chill. Again, great set, super fun, really beautiful, and in some ways it's in a fantastic value. But again, it has some problems I wanted to show out. Now, I wanted to summarize a few of my thoughts and feelings. I think audio is a funny thing. You might like something like this and you might not. I think this is a fantastic set. I think it's really beautiful. I think it's an amazing thing to look at. I love it. I love this IEM in so many ways. And I love the build quality, the cable. I love the design language. I love black IEMs and black things. I just think they're super cool and just kind of so handsome. And I like this IEM a great deal. And I think it's maybe a little bit overpriced, but for those people that really want that neutral sound signature, that want something a little bit more relaxed, I think this would be a really good value and something to consider if you're looking for that absolutely almost dead minor slight V neutral IEM. It's a good set and I like it a lot, and I encourage you guys to put it on your demo list. But am I going to tell you, hey, you should buy this right now? No, but I am telling you that if this sounds appealing, maybe you should try it from a show, or maybe try it, if you have the funds, maybe to try it sometime. but it is very relaxed. It is a little bit not too sparkly, but it is not very sibilant. It sounds good in ear. Tracks sound great on it, and I have no problems with it. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Go watch another IEM video. It's done. That's the entire video. What more do you want?